Let's get started. Welcome to another lecture. Today we consider LeBron James Sr., known globally as LeBron James. We observe an athlete whose name has become shorthand for excellence, longevity, and cultural influence. I am Alexei. With me is Priyanka.
Hi, I am Priyanka. I'm excited and also a little intimidated because the numbers around him feel, kind of huge.
Before we get to the complexities, a definition in lay terms. LeBron James is a remarkably skilled and versatile American basketball player. He scores at a historic rate, creates shots for others, defends multiple positions, and importantly, translates all of that into championships and sustained team success. In more technical terms, he is the National Basketball Association's all-time leading scorer, currently fourth in career assists and sixth in steals, while holding longevity records for seasons, games, minutes, and field goals made. It is crucial to understand he has performed as a small forward and power forward, yet frequently functions as a point forward, the primary on-ball initiator in varied systems.
Maybe, quick glossary. NBA is the National Basketball Association. All-Star is the league's showcase of top players. MVP is most valuable player, whether for a season or finals. Prep to pro means straight from high school to the NBA. I think those are the essentials for today.
Relevance and stakes. LeBron's career is a live case study in how elite performance intersects with media, business, and governance. He shapes discourse on how athletes build brands, negotiate labor mobility, and leverage equity rather than merely endorsements. Historically, his path from high school prodigy to NBA superstar challenged conventional development pipelines. We saw, for instance, national broadcasts of high school games, pay-per-view experiments, and eventually new thinking around name, image, and likeness economics. In simpler terms, when LeBron moved, the market moved.
So, moving on. Can we do a quick historical sweep to anchor the data points?
Let's start with the history. Born in 1984 in Akron, Ohio, he grew up amid instability, found structure with the Walker family, and began organized basketball in grade school. At St. Vincent St. Mary, he became a national sensation. As an underclassman, he appeared on the Sports Illustrated cover, a first. As a senior, his games aired nationally and even attempted pay-per-view in Ohio, which, we can infer, demonstrated demand without yet delivering profitability. Drafted first overall by Cleveland in 2003, he recorded 25 points in his debut, won Rookie of the Year, accumulated All-Star and All-NBA selections at a historic rate, and by the late 2000s owned both scoring and defensive reputations. The 2007 Eastern Conference Finals Game 5 was a signal event, 48 points, including the last 25 for Cleveland in a double overtime road win. Then came 2010 free agency to Miami, back to Cleveland in 2014, the landmark 2016 title ending a regional drought, Los Angeles in 2018, the Orlando Bubble title in 2020, the inaugural NBA Cup in 2023, and Olympic gold again in 2024, where he was named Olympic MVP. He has set durability records across 23 seasons and is a 22-time All-Star from 2005 to 2026. Financially, he became the first NBA player to reach $1 billion in earnings while still active. Incidentally, he and Stephen Curry were born in the same Akron hospital, a pleasing bit of symmetry for basketball historians.
I like that hospital coincidence. It makes me wonder how geography quietly links big stories.
A brief personal connection. My own work in analytics began with simple possession models. tracking how often a player tilts an expected value per trip. Watching LeBron in late-game sequences was like observing a well-conditioned Markov chain. State transitions with high probability of a favorable absorbing outcome. That is to say, he made endgames feel mathematically inevitable. This brings us to our three guiding questions.
I've been wondering about this. First, how did his high school career influence modern athlete development? Second, what if he had stayed in Cleveland in 2010? Third, how might his businesses reshape athlete entrepreneurship in the long run?
Big question one, historical influence. LeBron's high school years combined extraordinary performance with unprecedented visibility. We observed the ESPN2 broadcasts against Oak Hill, the pay-per-view attempt in Ohio, and the Sports Illustrated feature as an underclassman. There were also regulatory flashpoints. The Hummer purchased for the family, deemed permissible as a family gift. The suspension over throwback jerseys, not permissible under amateur rules. Collectively, these events forced administrators, media companies, and brands to clarify boundaries between fame, family support, and commercialization for teenagers. The AAU circuit gained further national relevance, and scouting operations began to follow younger cohorts with professional rigor. In simpler terms, a market formed around adolescent potential, and the rule book had to keep up.
Can we maybe now look at the exposure effect? How did those high school games on TV change what came after for other athletes?
We can infer several consequences. First, national broadcasts normalized the idea that elite high school matchups are viable programming, which later intersected with social media highlights and broader recruiting ecosystems. Second, even though the pay-per-view venture reportedly lost money, it demonstrated measurable curiosity, pushing media rights holders to test new formats. Third, it sharpened debates about amateurism. The jersey suspension illustrated how trivial material exchanges could trigger significant penalties, foreshadowing broader name, image, and likeness questions. While LeBron's case predates current NIL policies, the logic chain is direct. Exposure scales faster than old rules, therefore rules adapt.
The chalk toss ritual seems small, but it is a kind of showmanship that travels well on camera, right?
Precisely. The chalk toss is a micro-example of athlete as entertainment property, a repeatable sponsor-friendly visual. It tells us that story, ritual, and image are as portable as the game itself. Let's proceed to the next point. Big question 2. The counterfactual of 2010. If LeBron had remained in Cleveland rather than joining Miami, what follows? To frame our discussion, Cleveland in 2010 lacked a second MVP caliber co-star. Miami provided Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, modern spacing, and high-level defensive infrastructure. Without that shift, we would expect higher usage in Cleveland, perhaps more raw counting statistics, but likely lower efficiency against playoff defenses that could load up on him. The two Miami championships in 2012 and 2013 are, under conservative assumptions, less probable in Cleveland's then configuration. His defensive peak, aided by Miami's scheme and personnel, may also have been less pronounced. The 2016 title, after his eventual return, is still plausible, but perhaps delayed or achieved with greater roster retooling. In simpler terms, staying would likely deepen local continuity at the cost of early championships and certain efficiency peaks.
What if we thought about it like this? In the alternate timeline, how do his totals and awards look by the mid-2010s? More points? Fewer rings?
A reasonable projection, more points and perhaps assists as a sole engine. potentially one fewer finals MVP by that stage, possibly the same number of regular season MVPs, although voters often respond to team dominance and narrative arcs. His Cleveland legacy would be even more regionally singular, but the broader claim to adaptability, finals MVPs with multiple franchises, would be unavailable. We must note the uncertainty. Basketball is a complex system with injuries, trades, and emergent synergies. Yet the modal outcome points to fewer early titles and a tighter geographic identity.
And the GOAT debate. Staying might have improved the romance of loyalty, but perhaps hurt the trophy case. It sounds like one of those cases where preferences are, subjective.
Exactly. The comparative ranking is inherently disputed. His actual record, 4 MVPs, 4 finals MVPs, 10 finals, and nearly unmatched longevity, is already among the era-defining profiles. The counterfactual adjusts the weightings without resolving the subjectivity. Big question 3. Off-court ventures and the future of athlete entrepreneurship. LeBron's partnerships and investments generated unprecedented earnings while active, surpassing $1 billion, with recurring Forbes recognition among the highest paid. The operative model here treats the athlete as an enterprise. Equity stakes, media production, and global brand architecture aligning with on-court relevance. It is worth noting he has been named to Times 100 multiple times, which indicates influence beyond the confines of sport. We observe a feedback loop. Performance begets platform. Platform amplifies opportunity. And opportunity sustains performance via resources and optionality.
In what ways are current athletes following this example? I mean, not everyone can be LeBron, but the template seems portable.
We already see athletes creating content studios, co-investing in consumer brands, and negotiating for equity rather than purely cash endorsements. Younger players arrive with sophisticated social media operations, and, in collegiate contexts, NIL literacies are forming earlier. The strategic shift is from renting out one's image to owning the channels, the intellectual property, and sometimes the cap table. For researchers, a worthwhile avenue is longitudinal analysis. Track how athlete-led enterprises affect labor negotiations, salary cap dynamics, and media rights valuations in the next decade. In conclusion, the imitability lies less in scale and more in structure.
Building on that, there is also a public perception angle. Being repeatedly on Time's list suggests broad legitimacy, which might de-risk ventures for partners. Maybe that's something we can come back to later.
To summarize, LeBron James is the NBA's all-time leading scorer, a 4-time champion and 4-time Finals MVP, with Finals MVPs across 3 different franchises, an emblem of durability and two-way impact, and a bellwether for athlete entrepreneurship. Historically, his high school era accelerated exposure and forced governance debates. Counterfactually, a Cleveland-only 2010s path likely yields more raw totals early and fewer immediate titles. Prospectively, his off-court model reframes what an athletic career can produce beyond the game. For further study, examine the evolution of athlete branding as a market, including how NIL, equity deals, and media control alter power distributions.
That was helpful to think through, actually. Thank you, Professor.
This then completes our present analysis. Until next time, keep your questions sharp and your data cleaner than a chalk toss on a dark suit.